Name something you must have in order to live.
A man.
One of the 7 wonders of the world.
A rich man.
Something that improves with age.
A young man.
A Christmas present you'd exchange.
Oh, man.
Evil exists in this world. Trust no one. This is the story of Tonia McDonald, a beautiful, jovial, adventurous woman who fell prey to a relentless predator. The story takes us to Portland, Jamaica, a tourist-rich destination known for its natural beauty, stunning beaches, lush vegetation, and the peak of the Blue Mountain Range. Tonia grew up in a small, close-knit family in Portland, Jamaica, with her mom, dad, and extended family always ready to shield and guide her. After graduating Titchfield High School, she went on to pursue her business administration course as she dreamed of one day owning her own business. She loves to have fun and make others laugh, and she would often play out skits on TikTok.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a savage. Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty.
So, I'm going to talk about Jesus.
Hallelujah!
That's too loud.
Okay, sorry.
Do it nicely.
Oh,
okay?
yes. Hallelujah.
In 2007, she met a man by the name of Everton Beachy Stout McDonald, and he was relentless in pursuing her, even though he was married at the time. He was 52 years old and she was 19. He didn't hide her from his wife or anyone for that matter, and sure, she and his wife had several altercations. But not long after what would be their final altercation, in which his wife destroyed Tonia's phone that Beachy had bought, she was murdered at her home in May 2009. That didn't seem to bother Tonia, and within months she and Beachy were married and she assumed the role of wife. He was a wealthy and powerful businessman who was revered in his community. Of course, she was excited to finally be this close to real money, but she had no idea what being married really entailed. She was drawn to the lifestyle Beachy could afford her, but she was not prepared for what being a wife to Beachy meant. She was young, naive, and had no idea what she was getting herself into. They had a good couple of months, but it was not long before she began to experience the real Beachy Stout. He knew he was an older man and not a very comely one, yet he chose to be with a woman less than half his age while continuously looking over his shoulder to see if any young, handsome man would try to take her away. But Tonia remained a faithful wife for a good number of years. But that wouldn't last. Beachy was so insecure and seemed to be getting more insecure with each passing year. He poured out all his insecurities and frustrations into Tonia. And in 2015, she began to look outside her marriage for some solace and comfort. She got involved with a handsome policeman who was of Indian descent, and they would often meet up and spend quality time together. These meetings took her away mentally from her marital problems, temporarily each time. But she was being watched and reported on, and she had no idea. She began to drift away from her husband, and he was drifting away too, knowing what he knew that she didn't know that he knew. According to an ex-employee of Beachy Stout who was very close to them, he started to notice that Tonia and Beachy would not be together often from around 2015, and by 2019, the relationship was very rocky. Most of the nights when they close up the business and they go upstairs, he would hear Beachy arguing with Tonia about having man. And quite often, Tonia would leave the business and be gone for hours. He would sometimes take her phone away and restrict her. And whenever she tried to get her phone back, he would beat on her and at one time even hit her head on a wall. Beachy and Tonia tried to keep up appearance while out together in public, but something was brewing beneath the surface. Tonia thought she could have some solace and fun outside of her marriage and her husband would not find out. But little did she know he was having her watched at times and knew exactly where she was and who she was with. He kept accusing her of cheating, but she didn't realize he had proof she was cheating. Imagine her going on one of her secret rendezvous and coming home pretending like nothing happened, when her husband already knew everything. She was living dangerously, and although killing her is not justifiable, it was only a matter of time before he would do something about it. And with his old, established wisdom, he would strike only at the right time. For years, it had rumored in the community that Tonia's parents did not approve of her being with Beachy, and even after they were married, her dad would still try to intervene. But Beachy grew tired of her dad's interference and arranged for her dad to be murdered in 2018. It was confirmed during the trial by Denvalin, the contracted killer and key witness, that Beachy had Tonia's dad killed. According to Denvalin, Tonia asked him to source her a gun so she could kill the person who killed her dad. And she did so in front of her husband Beachy, who later told him that Beachy was the one who had her dad murdered, and that he should take the money Tonia gave him to buy her gun as a down payment towards the contract to murder her. So Tonia unknowingly delivers cash to the contract killer for her own murder. According to Denvalin, after Beachy hired him to kill his wife Tonia, he couldn't kill her himself because he was also having an affair with her. So the 56-year-old Denvalin Minot subcontracted 30-year-old Oscar Barnes to do it. Beachy had told him he did not want anyone else involved. He should do it on his own. But he decided to be there at the scene watching to make sure it's done, but letting Oscar do the actual killing. They made multiple, unsuccessful attempts to kill Tonia, their first attempt being at the home she shared with her husband, at his request. But while they were hiding in wait for the perfect moment to kill her, she got out of her car and instead of walking like she usually does, she quickly ran to her grill and the housekeeper let her in. Maybe it was her intuition, or it just wasn't her time to go, but she got out of her car and quickly ran inside her house. According to Denvalin, when that attempt failed, Beachy became irate, saying he was useless. Beachy was relentless in his pursuit to kill his wife, and Denvalin knew that if he didn't do it, he would have gotten someone else to do it, but it was going to get done. So after a few attempts, Denvalin and Oscar orchestrated the final plan. Denvalin would tell Tonia they were going to get her gun and another guy would be coming. Of course she trusted him and was also excited to finally get her gun, so she agreed and their plan was set in motion. At around 7 p.m. on Monday, July 20, 2020, Denvalin had Tonia drive him to pick up Oscar and then drive them both to her prospective murder scene. He beside her in the front of the car and the subcontracted murderer Oscar in the back seat behind Tonia. She thought they were taking her to get her gun. She had no idea they were leading her to her death. Denvalin testified in court that Beachy trusted him wholeheartedly and would not only let him handle his money, but would also have him run errands with Tonia from time to time. And during that time, Tonia developed a solid trust in him as well. And it was that trust that made her got in her car and drove with him and this strange man, Oscar Barnes, to a lonely place on the deserted Tellington Road in Sherwood Forest at night, even when her gut was not feeling right about it. They drove for a while on the lonely stretch, and as Tonia began to feel perturbed about it and asked where they were going, Oscar told her to go up a little more. After a few more minutes and they were at a T-junction, Oscar requested that Tonia stop the car. And as the car came to a halt, Denvalin quickly got out the car, and Tonia began to sense something was very wrong, but it was too late. Oscar quickly placed one hand around Tonia's neck, hooking her head to her seat headrest, and began stabbing her in the chest with the other. As blood spewed from her chest, she tried to loosen herself from his grip and was kicking and fighting really hard until she fell over to the back seat where the subcontracted murderer was. The pain was so excruciating, Tonia screamed for her mother, saying, "My mother want me! My mother want me!" But he continued stabbing her in her chest as she wrestles with him. And as she was losing the fight and getting weaker from all the stab wounds, he then slit her throat to ensure she would die. Denvalin watched from outside the car the entire time until Tonia took her last breath. Then they lit the car on fire. According to Denvalin, Beachy told him he wanted Tonia dead, but he didn't want her to be shot and go out easily. He wanted her to suffer. So he told him to stab her multiple times in her chest, cut her throat, and light her body on fire. And that's exactly how Tonia died. Autopsy later revealed that Tonia had been stabbed more than a dozen times in her neck, chest, breast, and back, puncturing her right lung. The stab wounds to her chest were muscle and bone deep, tearing through her chest wall and tissue. The wound to her neck was 11 centimeters long and 6 centimeters wide, and her trachea was also punctured. The wound to her trachea was so deep the weapon hit her spinal column. 90% of her body was burnt, and her chest cavity was exposed. Thankfully, as fate would have it, Beachy refused to pay the $3 million he promised to pay for slaughtering his wife, which is the only reason we are hearing about what really happened to Tonia. When he did not get paid, he decided to go to the police and confess everything. He has been charged and is serving a 19-year life sentence with available parole after 10 years served. Everton, Beachy, Stout, McDonald, and Oscar, the Ute Barnes, are currently on trial for Tonia's murder. And we hope they will be held accountable and put away for good, so they can never harm anyone ever again. One can only imagine the horror Tonia experienced as her life was being taken from her one stab wound at a time to one of the most sensitive areas on her body. But the one good thing that could come from her murder is that Beachy Stout's first wife could also finally get justice, as her case has been reopened only because of Tonia's murder.
Portland businessman Everton McDonald, who is charged with the murder of his first wife, Merlene, more than a decade ago, paid a policeman to orchestrate the killing. Mr. McDonald, who is also charged with the killing of his second wife, Tonia, appeared in court via video conferencing from the Horizon Adult Remand Center.
When the matter was called up in the Home Circuit Court this morning, the prosecutor disclosed that Mr. McDonald allegedly had Merlene killed because their marriage broke down in 2007, after which she moved out of the matrimonial home.
As a result of a second wife's brutal murder, the first wife's case has been reopened and Beachy is charged and will face trial in 2024. Beachy Stout thought he had gotten away with murdering his first wife, so he decided to do it again. And while it can be very difficult to bring charges against, let alone garner a conviction for the wealthy people who wield power in the island of Jamaica, the evidence is overwhelming in this case. There are recorded phone messages and other solid forensic evidence that have been collected. But while it is obvious to us that he is responsible for both wives' murder, the court will be the one to decide if he gets convicted and justice is finally served. He took over Tonia's life and took it away in the end. May Tonia's precious soul rest in peace. And may she get the justice she and her family so rightfully deserve. What would you have done if someone you knew and trusted instructed you to drive to a lonely place late at night? Think about it, then share in the comments. And please like, share, and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe out there. And remember, trust no one.
What is it about? What is it on me? What is he? What is he? What I get like that?
So you don't have nobody?
Not at the moment. Lose my lady in a car accident. What about you?
Oh no, I never been into a car accident.
I mean, if you don't have nobody.
No. I lose all of my parents from them was children.
I mean, if you have like a partner.
The last one me join, a police me have to carry the girl yard to collect me join.
All right, done.